Welcome to the seventh session of Samkhya 101, an introduction to Samkhya. This is our eighth session. Today I intend to complete the first chapter, and in the remaining 5 weeks before Christmas, we will look at each subsequent chapter in 1 week, only in the summary. I believe in the first chapter, Kapil has presented his entire framework, and that gives a fairly good idea. And in the later chapters, things are developed further. So, as it is called an introduction to Sankhya, I think that should be in order. So, let me bring out my slides. Yeah, that's our title. Last week we discussed from 1.67 to 1.102. First two statements were devoted to wide discussion on evidences. Of course, the objective is to get to know Purush and Prakriti. But even if we embark on a journey, we know what destination is. The destination should be viable. So evidences help us. Evidence doesn't take us up to Buddhi and Prakriti, but it gives us an idea there is something like that. And Kapil is trying to convince us. Finally, we have to traverse the journey to meditation practice, etc. But we must know at least what are we aiming for. And what we are aiming for is sensible. Is it, or is it just, imaginary things? So that's why we discussed evidences. Then next four statements were that the experience in the day-to-day life, because even to get that discriminatory knowledge, I am living in this world. And as I live in this world, I am going through day-to-day experience. So that is what he has he has tried to establish, that chit avsano bhoga. What was it? The experience which appears on my buddhi. I hope you are comfortable. I used to more often call it a chitta than buddhi because of influence from Patanjali Yoga, but they are the same thing. So whether I say chitta or buddhi, I hope you understand. It is the screen I am watching in my model of thumb in the fist. So the thumb is the me, the observer, and what I see in the inner side of my palm, that is my, whether you call it chitta or buddhi, it is that instrument I am watching. So throughout the day, 24 by 7, somewhere in a tiny shell in our head region, we are watching that small cinema hall. Of course, it gives us a wonderful thing, as if I am seeing so many kilometers ahead of me, all that three dimensionality, all those five kinds of uh, perception, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. That's the beauty of these inner instruments. So, what he's saying is, all those in my day to day life, I go through these experiences, and they are because I do perform certain karma, my efforts. That's what life is all about. And they bring their reward. And then I have it's not arbitrary. The rewards are commensurate to the kind of efforts I make. And in real world, there is, so to say, law of land also. If you do some wrong things, you will be put in a prison. So there is a law of land, and that is in the image of law of karma. So whatever experience I get on my buddhi has some correspondence with the nature of effort and karma I am making. But all this is happening because I am trapped I am in a cage, like a bird in a cage. So that's why we are bounded. And that is there because of avivek, lack of wisdom, lack of that discriminatory knowledge. So that lack of discriminatory knowledge has brought us into a cage, and we are making effort to come out of the cage. We are not even aware of all these things. That's what Kapil is trying to teach us. But while in the cage, we are doing all kinds of activities, and they bring their rewards, and the reward comes to us up to the point of buddhi, and then I relate it to as if it is happening to me, and then it becomes sukha, dukh, pleasure or pain of day to day life. So that was in 169 to 172. Then the nature of Prakriti was made in about six statements, that must be the primary material cause, which is not knowable because in in the in the primordial state of matter in Prakriti, the three stands, sattva, rajas, tamas, are in balance, in equilibrium. So it is theoretically unknowable. And that will be brought out again today towards the end of the session. And then there was a 23 statements of Satkaryavad. This is his original cause and effect, and how are they related. And effect doesn't come out of the sky just like that. It comes from a specific cause, and that specificity of, like we discussed, a piece of fabric can be made from cotton wool but not from clay, etc. So we have discussed all those intricacies of his arguments. Now we move further. Today I have prepared a lot of slides. It's not that I just want to complete chapter one, but I hope you'll do the justice so that you are able to get a good feel of what is Kapil intending to say. So now it begins discussion. Up till now, it was discussion mainly on Paketi. Now this is a new section in chapter one. It goes from 103 up to its end, which is about 129 or something. And now the discussion is on Purush. So we have discussed Prakriti and many other things in between. Why we want to go to that Atyant Purushat, what is the nature of bonding, this and so first chapter has been, and this first chapter I will try to review again next week. But now we are in a major section. This is about Purush, and let's look at it. So 1.103 is saying Samanyen Vivada Bhavad Dharmvat na sadhanam. What is vivad is dispute, the disagreements. Samanyan means samanya means common. Indeed, the word common comes from samanya, except sa becomes ka. Samanya common, isn't it? Looks similar. So common. What he's saying is in Prakriti, when he was trying to argue, there was a lot of need of argument because of the reasons you are now familiar with. But when it comes to the Purush, he says even common man is aware of the fact that I am, isn't it? We know I am, I exist. That is there in everybody's thing. So how is it? It is like dharma. So dharma is something the whole world exists. Whole world knows that this whole society cannot be sustained if we are not observing some common rules of conduct, common, like we must be truthful, we shouldn't hurt. These are the dharma, you know. And if you go to interact with others, everybody expects what you are saying is truthful. So, what Kapil is trying to say, like there is a common agreement about what is our moral code of conduct. Similarly, there is a common understanding that yes, I am there, we are there. So the English translation is now discussion begins on Purush. Prakriti is unknowable in its raw form, but is inferred from Mahat. As opposed to that, the situation about Purush is not that complicated because, in an ordinary sense, existence of Purush is well accepted because everybody trusts in the self awareness that I am. And for that reason, there is not much dispute about existence of Purush, as is true with other righteous conduct called dharma, such as truthfulness. Like truthfulness, nobody teaches in a school, don't be truthful. We all teach our next generation. We should be truthful because that is well accepted. In the same manner, he's saying that it is very well accepted that there is a feeling. Every common man also knows it. I am, I exist, I am a conscious human being, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, he will go in a more systematic manner. In 104, he says, Shayadi Vyati Puman. Shayi is the body domain. So he's saying something different from body is me. So translation is, however, one is likely to hear, I am obese, I am sick, I am strong, I am blind, etc. I am, that was also one part, but we hear this statement also, but that pertain to the physical body, thus relating to the self with the body. So, in a common nomenclature, we do say, I am hungry or I am, so which are the characteristics of the body, but we associate them with I. So he says, hence it is pragmatic to clarify where our consciousness resides. Is it in the body or somewhere else? So he says at the outset, Shayadi Vyatikta Puman. Purush is different from the physical body, not only this physical gross body, even from the minutest organs of Chitta Buddhi as they lack consciousness. Because physical body doesn't have consciousness. We know when I am deep in sleep, somebody can replace my hand and I wouldn't know it because my hand doesn't exhibit that sort of consciousness at that point of time. And so is true in deep sleep. When there are no dreams, my instrument of buddhi is there, but it doesn't show me anything. But when I am in a semi deep sleep, not that deep, then of course I have dreams. So there are situations when I am alive, when my instruments of gross body as well as buddhi are there, yet they are non-functional. So, but I am consciously there. So that means my consciousness, Purush, is different from all this. 1.105, Sanghat Payathatva. This was there in 1.31 also, if you remember. This is basically saying anything we do in the world, in the man made world at least, it is for the benefit of a conscious being. And then we extrapolated it that even the universe, there is a maker of somebody, maybe Ishwar, whatever it is, and that we transport this argument that even what he does, Ishwar does, is also must be for a conscious being. So that is what is Sanghat Payathatvat, anything material, which is what is brought together. Sanghat is Sanghat, it is bringing together. Like we give always the example of carpenter making a chair out of wood, so he is bringing together different pieces of wood, nail, and this and that. So whenever we do something with a matter and build up, create something else, we have an idea that eventually it will benefit or there will be an end user of that product what we are making. Sometimes, like there is a factory where you just make, say, nails, but that nail will be used in some other system where that particular later system after certain value addition will be used by human beings or any animals or something. So sometimes we create a small material thing which we know, which may not be a full system in itself, but it will be incorporated in any other thing, and that finally will be beneficial to any conscious being. So 1.105 is saying Purush is different from body and is the eventual beneficiary of whatever is done in the universe. Next to statement 1.06, Trigunadi Vipayayat. Trigun is three triple stands, which is what the material world is made of. So he is saying, Trigunadi Vipayayat. After all, we, the conscious being, lack those three strands which give rise to the multiplicity of our experiences, isn't it? Because, of course, that will be made in a few statements later. Sushupti, which is deep sleep, but I do refer to it again and again because there is a state in 24 hours during the night when I am deep in sleep, I have no fluctuations. Otherwise, during the day, we have these three modes. Sometimes I am very joyful, sometimes I am in deep pain, sometimes I am very allergic, lethargic, I am very sleepy, I am very tired. So these three possibilities give rise to all kinds of infinite possibilities. But there is a state, particularly deep sleep, when I am not in any of this. You could say I am in dormant state, but actually that time I am alone. The Purush is alone, absolutely disconnect from Buddhi, and that is what is his true state, but it doesn't come out because of the blackout and so on and so forth. So Trigonadi is mentioning that there must be a Purush because there is something in me which doesn't go through those multiplicity, isn't it? So 1.06 is saying Purush is word of three strands of Sattvajas and Tamas, and hence is unmanifest. Because any material things goes through all kinds of changes and all. So this is not only deep sleep, even otherwise we are very confident that I, the individual me, I am the same person yesterday who did that and this, 2 years ago who went there, 20 years ago I was in that university. I am the same person. I haven't changed. My body has changed, my mind has changed, my knowledge has changed, my concepts have changed, my views have changed, but I have not changed. So that is what is Trigunadi Vipayayat. Like any material thing goes through changes, manifestations, transformations, but we are unmanifest. 1.07 is saying Adhisthanacha iti. So this particular section is ending here with iti. Cha means furthermore, adhishthanat. Adhishthanat means royalty, presiding entity. So there must be a presiding entity of any material system. That is true about my body and my buddhi and inner instruments of mind also. So this must be, somebody must be the owner of this system, isn't it? So that is what he's talking about. And when we talk about Purush, it is usually for me as well as for that infinite soul of Ishwar also. So let's see. Tiny souls, there must be a presiding entity of any material system. Tiny souls own the physical body and the inner organs up to the final point of Chitta Buddhi. Infinite soul of Ishwar presides over the entire material domain in the universe. Of course, he is ruling over our tiny souls also, in the sense it was, I wasn't deciding which family I will come in, you know. So someday is a manager of all of us. So he is presiding over a wider domain. But here we are talking about material domain. So I am confining it to that. So tiny souls, we are owner of our body and mind up to the point of buddhi, all those indicate things. But owner in the sense that is at our disposal. Of course, there are a lot of limitations, but we are, we don't know when will we die. It is not for us to decide. So that way, I am not fully the owner, isn't it? I will be. It's kind of I have been leased. This system has been leased to me, and there is no exit clause. Any day I may be asked to vacate it. But as long as I am here, I can treat as if I am the owner of I am the master of this system. And that infinite soul is presiding over the entire material kingdom of the whole universe. So that is intending to say Prakriti and its derivatives are void of consciousness and obey the commands of a conscious being, just like we are familiar in our world, just as a car is driven by a human being. We are familiar with it. At least in the man-made world, anything we like, we make a chair. Chair is not for just itself. It is for a human being to sit on it, isn't it? So we are ruling over all, not the entire material kingdom, but a portion of it on which we have certain command and authority. So I switch on my laptop, I switch on these lights in the hall and in the. So there are many things I decide and I act upon. So in the same manner, I drive a car from place A to place B, and it obeys all of my commands, and I reach there in safety and comfortably. So these are all this is for somebody who is a conscious being who can enjoy it, who has bhog, who has an ability to do the bhog, which was a technical term to enjoy the experiences of life. So the previous two statements, 106, 107, pertain to Purush, Purush in the total sense, both tiny souls as well as Ishwar. But now we are specific to this next two statement because they are talking about Bhog. Ishwar doesn't do any Bhog. He is always disconnect from matter, though he has authority over matter. We, because of our Vivek, whatever happens on my buddhi, I relate to it, and then that becomes Bhog. Just like, sometimes we are watching a cinema and sometimes we get so much lost into it as if we become a participant in that cinema. But here there is a real cinema in our shell of mind, which is 24 by 7, and we are always participating with it. What Patanjali has called Vritti Sarupyam Itayat. That is his fourth statement in the first chapter, that is what is the human nature, and that is why we should do the Chittavritti Nirodha, etc. So now these two statements are related to Bhog and Apvarg. Apvarg is, of course, you know it. I am permanently disconnect. I'm out of that cage. The bird is out of the cage, that liberation. Now, for me, my Purush, there is no Buddhi counterpart. Buddhi has vanished back to its Prakriti where it came from. So I am no more bounded by Buddhi or by the gross body, etc. So that is upward. So 108 is saying Bhukta Bhavat. So now we are still talking about Purush. The previous were related to both tiny souls and Ishwar. Now this is specific to tiny souls, us and animals, birds, whatever it is, all of us included. And now he's saying our souls must be existing. All the previous reasons were valid, plus he's offering two more reasons. What are they? Bhokta Bhavat, because we have an ability to do the bhog. Creation made of matter is for bhog of a conscious being that can derive enjoyment. And one who derives enjoyment is called bhokta. So this is enjoyer, this is enjoyment, and such as a car is utilized by a human being. So if somebody is building a car, naturally it is for a human being. In the same manner, all this universe, all these intricate instruments of our mind and body and all this, it has to be for somebody who is a conscious being. Page 109, another argument is offered. Kevalyatham pravettescha. Kevalya, which is upward or liberation, there are different names. Moksha also. So every soul wishes to get rid of pain and suffering. The ultimate state is called moksha, Kevalya, or upward, or atyant purushat, as in 1.1. Pain arises when the soul is in contact with Prakriti. One who desires Kevalya is the tiny soul. Indeed, a car transports the driver to his destination and stops. So, I'm just giving a metaphor of using a car. A car has been built for a human being. A car is driven by a human being. A car which is being driven by a human being is enjoyed by the human being who is driving and traveling. And finally, the journey also ends somewhere once you have reached a destination. There has to be, if you are on a journey, it has to end somewhere. And that is what human life is. This is also a journey which ends with Kaivalya liberation. Otherwise, you have to change it, and again, birth and death is cyclic. So, that is what, in terms of the journey, we can see an analogy that yes, there is an internal feeling that of course, we all have a tendency to get away from pain, but there has to be, as we get wiser, as we get more mature, we do have a tendency. I want to get away from pain in an absolute sense. And that, who has that desire? That is my Purush, my soul. So, this is now we are discussing Purush, and there are arguments that Purush must be there as an existent, different from the Prakriti. That is the basis of Kapil's philosophy. Now, next four statements. Tiny soul, could it be another transformation of Prakriti? You know, up till now it was like, yes, we did say push, but take it as if the argument was there is a consciousness. And now Kapil is trying to be specific that consciousness is not a derivative of Prakriti, of matter. It must be something non-material, and so therefore Purush must be non-material. Now we are getting into four statements corresponding to that. So previously 103 to 109 concludes an attribute of consciousness, but could it be that it is a derivative of Prakriti? Now he's being specific. Yes, consciousness is an attribute, but could it be a characteristic of matter or not? That is what is being examined. Now 1.10110 is saying Jad Prakash Ayogat Prakasha. At the outset, he is saying no material thing is seen to exhibit consciousness, and hence consciousness must be attributed to an independent entity. We build so many things materially. Human beings have never been able to make a thing which is exhibiting consciousness. And it has never happened, and probably likely never to happen. So, this is one argument that consciousness can never be resultant of matter. Let's proceed further. 1.111. Nigunatvat na chit dharma. Tiny soil is void of guna, because anything you say it is material, is made of those three strands, sattva, rajas, and tamas, but tiny soul is niguna, without guna. So, and it is pure consciousness. Guna is relevant for cause and effect related to matter. So, there are all kinds of things, corollary of this. If something is made of matter, it will be with three strands, and then it will be always cause and effect journey, which we have discussed in the past. you know Cause and effect is valid for anything that is made of matter, like cotton wool becomes piece of fabric, then decays. So all this long journey is valid for something that is made of matter, that exhibits three strands, that exhibits multiplicity and transformation. So it is never the journey is one way, it goes up, ascending and then descension. And then going back to the cause where it came from, namely Prakriti. So there is always activity and transformation, and all this is happening while that is absent in the tiny soul. So tiny soul could not be made of matter because it doesn't exhibit those kind of three stands. Like Shrutya 1.112 Shrutya Siddhasya Na Apalapa Tat Pratyaksha Badha. Now, as is his habit, he finally gives the authority of the Vedas. Shruti is Vedas here. Shruti doesn't say like that. So the Vedas too state that the tiny soul is pure consciousness. So there is a push in all of us that is pure consciousness, and that is not a derivative of matter. So there is a technical point here. I will try my best to explain. It is Chaitanya Swarup. The term is Swarup. If you remember from Patanjali Yoga, Yoga is Chitta Vritti Yoga. Yoga is to subdue all the modifications on my chitta. Then what happened? Tada dashtu Swarupe avasthanam. Then the observer comes to his Swarup. So Swarup is my intrinsic state, my raw state. Swarup is a technical term. It means my raw, primordial, my intrinsic state. That's what I am. So please remember it and listen to this carefully. Consciousness. Now the Purush, the soul he has in mind, doesn't have a characteristic of consciousness. This is consciousness by itself. It's a slightly difficult point here to understand. Let me give you a metaphor. There is a light here. There is a lamp here in my room here, which is emitting light. So light is its characteristic, and lamp is the thing. The thing is the lamp, and it is emitting light, isn't it? Now, if we go into detail, it has a small filament which is burning due to the passage of electricity. At a higher temperature, it is red hot, and that is burning. That is what is emitting light, isn't it? Now, this is an example. It doesn't give me that. They cannot be an example of what we are discussing, but please listen to this carefully. In the limit, we are familiar with mathematics. In the limit, if the filament is zero size, is a singularity, has no size. Sometimes in the sky you see the light, but there is no material particle there. It is just light. So imagine something which is just pure light. So light now, just imagine there is a small point in the sky which emits light due to the friction of clouds or whatever it is. Of course, there is always a material, small, tiny particles, but I am trying to take you to the limit. Imagine there is a no particle, it is a zero length singularity, but it has a property that it emits light. Then what will we say? We will not say that thing, whatever is that imaginary thing, we will not say that thing has a characteristic of light. We will say that thing is light itself. That is inherently light, isn't it? Because there is no thing there. It is not material thing. It doesn't go through cause and effect. We have discussed all that, but it emits light. It's of course difficult to imagine in the real world because light is always emitted by something which exists in the material world. But if you could just in your mind imagine something which just emits light, but it is not material thing, then you will realize that our Purush is something like that, which is not, whose characteristic is not consciousness, that is consciousness by itself. You know, that is a technical point. I hope I have tried to explain. So that is called, it is Chaitanya Swarup. It is it is consciousness by itself. It is not that the Purush has a characteristic or property of consciousness. Purush is consciousness by itself. That's it. That is what it is. It has no other. That's what it is. That's it. So that's what is he's trying to say. That what was it? We were in 1.112 because there is no. Uh, Let me read the translation. And it is not that consciousness is tiny soul's characteristic. It is inherently conscious because the word in the Vedas are that is Chaitanya. So one word you are probably familiar with because Ishwar is said to be like that. Satchidananda Swarup. So, here that is a compound word, Sat, Chit and Anand Swarup. So, it is not that Ishwar has these characteristics. Ishwar is inherently Sat, means ever existent. Chit, Ishwar is inherently consciousness, and we are also inherently existent. We are eternally existent. We are also Chit in the sense Chaitanya Swarup, but Ishwar is one more step beyond us. He is Ananda Swarup as well, which we are not. So that is the meaning of the term Swarup. So Kapil is negating the possibility because it is not, Purush is different from Prakriti, is not made of matter, so it is otherwise anything in the world we look at it, there is an embodiment of matter which exhibits certain characteristic. But Purush is unlike that, it is just pure consciousness itself. 1.113 Shushuptyadya Sakshitvam. Now he's saying Shushupti, etc. So let me read the translation. If consciousness were to be its characteristic, yeah, you know, if suppose I was not Chaitanya Swarup, but it was my characteristic, then he is saying, who will experience Shushupti when there is when we are disconnect from our buddhi? You know, if there, because again you will need a material thing to experience it, because buddhi is made of matter. Now in Sushupti, there is nothing appearing on the buddhi, but when I come out of deep sleep, I do say, I enjoyed good sleep. Now, who was this who says, I enjoyed good sleep? Now, this is something, one who is not, who is further disconnect from buddhi, and that without the instrument of buddhi he has that confidence that I went through an experience of a wonderful rejuvenation, wonderful uh, cleansing, wonderful rest, which is called deep sleep, isn't it? So somebody confidently says, I went through an experience, I felt it, whereas that entity was disconnect from chitta buddhi also. And buddhi is the last, smallest particle made of mahat, smallest particle of Prakriti. So this I must be something different from non different from anything that is made of matter, and that is what is my pure Chaitanya Swarup. Now the discussion is moving. If my consciousness, or now it is going about tiny soul, we are already on tiny soul, which is not derived from Prakriti. Now is the tiny soul is one or many? Yeah, that's the question. So 1.114 is saying Janmadi Vyavasthata Purush Bahutvam. Bahut is multiple. There are multiple Purush, because of all the diversity we see it. So Purush is the pure consciousness and eternal, but is it one or many? This is the question now being raised. There is diversity seen among individuals. One takes birth where another dies. One is happy and contented, but another is in pain and suffering. So all sorts of diversity is there. So we must conclude that every individual conscious being has its own tiny soul, because somebody is having, at the same time somebody has different experience than mine. And chitavsano bhoga, my experience is what is registered on my chit, my consciousness. And if my consciousness has a different experience and yours has a different experience, then our consciousness must be two different consciousness. They cannot be the same. So that was 1.114. Now he's saying that our soul, which is Purush, but ours, human being, animals, not Ishwar. So that is doesn't undergo birth and death. This is a corollary, because we are not made of matter, we are not Prakriti, so we are eternal. So that is being, a corollary statement is being made. 1.115 Upadhi Bhede Abhi Ekasya Nana Yoga Akashasyeva Ghatadibi. So, we were just discussing diversity. So, diversity is more in, let's read the translation. Upon death, the same soul migrates into another body and takes a new birth. The cycle of birth and death goes on. Likewise, a picture occupies certain space and may be replaced by another picture in the same space. That space continues to exist, though different articles may occupy that space. The space doesn't decay, it is the objects occupying that space undergo decay and degradation. So this is another corollary. Of course, my soul is mine, yours is yours, and even if you go to a place X and then you vacate that place X and I go there, it is not that place X is occupied by the same soul. So that's what he's saying. One particular picture, a particular object might be occupying a particular portion of the space, but if that has been replaced by another object seemingly same, then they too have different history, different future, though the space is same. So that is what is happening here. That space doesn't change. It is the articles, it is the products, it is the things that occupy that space. They go through transformation because they are made of matter. So that is kind of he has talked. So, what was the space is our Purush, and what was the objects, namely the earthen pitcher, is like our body. So our body will die, take birth, we will change and all that, but our soul is the same. That doesn't, like the space doesn't go through decay and change. It is only the articles, objects occupying that space go through the changes. So, in other words, the body goes through all kinds of transformation and changes, but not the Purush. That is what is made clear in 1.116. Upadhi vidyate na tu tadvan. Upadhi was the body. The body decays and dies, but the occupant soul does not die as it goes through no transformation. So these are the corollaries because Purush, the tiny soul, is not made of matter, doesn't go through changes, doesn't is without those three strands. So all those possibilities are being stated one after another. That was 1.116. Now there be, we have discussed if there could have been uh, if our consciousnesses are different. That was in space. Let's see. If one soul goes through several bodies in time, then since in the previous slide we have talked about birth and death. Now one soul, like today I am in this particular body, upon my death I will be in another body. So this is in the time direction. Now he is going to do it in the examine it in the space plane. So at the same time, could I move from one body to another body? I hope you understand. He has discussed in the previous slide what journey a particular soul goes through with time. That is what leads to birth and death and again the birth. But now the time is frozen. Now the discussion is the journey of the consciousness in space. So let's read it. If one soul goes through several bodies in time, that we have discussed, then a possibility is raised that maybe one soul occupies several bodies in space at the same time. In other words, if the soul transcends through time, then could it transcend through space as well? This has been partly discussed in 114, which we said that because of I am in joyful state, I am happy, somebody else is pain. So naturally our consciousness must be different. But now he is going to look at it in a more theoretically sound manner. 1.117 says, Evam, in the same manner, ekatven paivartanamanasya na viruddha dharmadhyasa. If there is only one soul in different bodies, then he is repeating the same argument. Then diverse experiences undergone by different beings cannot be explained. It is seen that at any given time, one experiences joy, whereas another experiences pain, and so on. So this is kind of a repeat of 1.114. but he might have felt it's necessary because of the time movement, and now he's doing in the space. This matter, this subsection is there. Two more statements, let's look at them. Could one soul in different bodies make different experiences possible because they are brought to use by chitta buddhi, which are different? Now, this is another argument. Maybe the soul is same in two bodies, but the instruments are different. Namely, my buddhi in my body is different from buddhi in your body. But could it be that our soul is same? Because we have been emphasizing that any experience is brought to the soul, but by our instruments of body and the inner instruments of mind up to the point of buddhi. So the the opponent, you can say, or the layperson is raising this possibility. Okay, there is only one soul, but maybe they have different experiences because they have two different buddhis. It's like saying one driver, but one leg is in this car and another leg is in this car, and you reach in two destinations. So it's a bad example, but I'm just saying that 1.117, so 1.118 was Anyadharmatvepi Naropa Tatsiddhi Ekatvat. Yes, it is true that experiences are brought to us by Chitta Buddhi and associated instruments which are different at a given time. But it must be so that we are different souls because experiences are felt by the individual souls. And the individual souls, due to the avivek, the inner darkness, undergo that experience as if it is happening to them. So there must be different souls in different conscious beings. These are mental gymnastics because in those times probably people were arguing. So he is just solidifying his ground, not leaving any possibility for the opponents. If soul is not treated as one, then our idea of multiple souls contradicts with what is stated in the Vedas. So this is 1.119. Na Advait, na Advait, Shruti Vyodo Jati Payatva. Shruti is the Vedas. Na Advait means there is no duality, as if there is oneness. So somebody is raising an argument. Vedas talk about oneness. So all that you are talking about, two different souls in two different beings, is kind of contradicting. So to this, Kapil is responding, no, there is no contradiction with what is stated in the Vedas, because whenever Vedas indicate oneness among tiny souls and infinite soul, the purpose is to highlight the common attribute of consciousness. It is we are all one because we are all conscious beings. So that is what is our common characteristic. Again, I am using the consciousness as characteristic, but please, I must qualify. We have discussed slightly later. It is not our case. We are Chaitanya Swarup. We are consciousness by itself. So that is also common with all of us, so to say. The purpose is not to mean oneness of tiny souls, but it is to highlight that we are all the Chaitanya Swarup, the inherent consciousness. Now it is the next subsection. Again, there is some 123 statement. Could there be one soul in many bodies? Though all this has been covered, but I think I should have changed the title. Maybe I think I forgot to change the subtitle of this section of three statements. What I I think often I will say the title here should have been that uh, this is what we have been discussing in previous few slides is known through self-realization. Tadrupam. So 1.120 is vidit bandhakaranasya drishtya tadrupam. So self-realization, the layman is questioning, how do you say all this? What is the basis of? How can we know that the attribute is alike in all tiny souls? Then Kapil is offering 1.120. Self-realization permits one to experientially realize the self and buddhi as two different entities. This is Vivekhyati. Discriminate is self-realization is not common experience of I am is much, you know, I am is much more common. That's how the story started, isn't it? That Samanyen, everybody feels that I am different from the body, I am a conscious being, this and that. But self realization is not a common experience, but nevertheless, it is there. And that is what Kapil is saying is the basis of the argument that we have previously seen. So they are not mere arguments. Kapil is forcefully saying they can be validated by means of a process of self realization. Then somebody says again 1.128.1, if some people say it, others don't see it, then how is it, what is the evidence here? So Kapil goes on to strengthen his argument. He is saying 1.121, na andadeshtya chakshushmataman anuplambha. If a blind person cannot see an object, then it doesn't follow that those with eyes too cannot see the object. So if somebody can see the object, that is an authority other than somebody who says, I didn't see it, isn't it? If somebody says, I saw it, of course, the words his seeing is not that common to the outer eyes, to the self realization. So he is offering, yes, less people go through this process, but they have their conclusion should be treated as an evidence and is authoritative. If ordinary people cannot achieve self realization, then it is not that others cannot realize the soul. So, this is like ordinary people, like blind people, and who can do the self realization with the eyes. So, he's putting a kind of analogy. He further goes on in 1.122, Vam Devadi Mukto Na Advaitam. This is a final. Yeah, I think this title was not bad. Could there be one soul in many bodies? It's slight because no Advaitam here is. So this section is also ending with that. So the literal translation is, it is well known that Vamdeva and others achieved liberation. So in this our ancient tradition, it is stated that there is a person named Vamdev, and in the classical literature, it is mentioned that Vamdev attained what is called liberation. So again, if he attained liberation, at least anybody, one individual, that means he has his soul has got liberated, but we are still in the world. So it could not be that his soul and my soul be one, isn't it? So that is a final kind of evidence he is giving after all these arguments that since Vamdev has been liberated, it means we are not one but multiple souls. So there are different tiny souls in different conscious being, and this is another argument final. Let's move on. 1.23. Now, since people get liberated, of course, it's not easy task. The layperson is raising an inquiry. If one gets liberated, another person, then this whole universe will become a void. Nobody living here, isn't it? So he's slightly asking a question. How does, because if I am also a Purush, and that Ishwa is also Purush who is managing all the affairs of the universe. Now he's just raising an inquiry. What happened? How does all this work? He made this creation because we are still seeking liberation. But suppose, hypothetically, we get liberated, then what? There will not be such a universe? So that is the question being asked. So 1.123 is anadavadya yavad abhavad bhavishyadapi evam. Bhavishyad means future, evam means in the same manner. Universe has been existent since infinite time. You know, even time is also created when universe gets created. So The overall, because like we take birth and die and then take birth again. So this universe also gets created at a time and then it goes through another darkness, another annihilation, another. But it is not that the entire universe, maybe this solar system. So, there is a couple is leaving the possibility that there are multiple universes in the entire gigantic galaxies and all, whatever you call that. Then somewhere it is in a daytime mode, like here in our solar system, but elsewhere maybe it is in the Nasha Karan layer, means it is going back to the matter, Prakriti, and then that will be created again. So this is the daytime of the universe, and some other solar system, it could be the night time of the universe. So all those possibilities there. But if you look at it in an aggregate form, there is never a non-existent. So universe has been existent since infinite time and will continue to exist for an infinite time as it is eternal, though cyclic in nature. It is cyclic, but it is the there are cycles and cycles after cycles, and there is nothing like it had a beginning or it will have an end. There is nothing like beginning or nothing like end. And actually, time is also ill-defined in certain part, like in the solar system, which where the night is there is no time, it is frozen, isn't it? Even when we are in sleep, for that individual person, time is frozen. So, time is also not that simple parameter. So these are, of course, the complexities. 1.124 is saying, Idani Mivasavatya na atyantocheda. So it goes through transformation as currently. So like this is the running universe in our solar system, and it goes through transformation, but it never becomes absolute non-existent, even though it may merge into its primary cause, namely Prakriti, but for some time to re-emerge again. So, this what is existing universe, it may decay, become Prakriti, and after some time it will come back into its in this form, active form. In 1.125, Vyaveto Ubharupa. Ubha means both. In these two possibilities, like universe at the moment here, uh, two possibilities are uh, what the layperson is saying, absolute non-existent. No, I should say two possibilities are like I made about two possible solar system. One is here, and one is an imaginary solar system somewhere else, which is going through, which has gone through annihilation, where the matter is in the form of Prakriti. These two possibilities, it is not that the in entirety the whole world, super universe, whatever you call, is not either of this. It is all fluctuations. It's all happening at the same time. So it is not that either we are here or there. Of course, non-existent has been already negated, but that is again being forcefully denied that both are untrue. It goes through transformation once brought into existence and returns to its primary cause. Because the layperson has in mind either the universe exists like this or it is absolutely in the Paketi mode. Then, if it is in Paketi mode everywhere, why should it exist anywhere? So Kapil is denying that. It's neither in that way. It is all, it is both are concurrently functioning. It's not that it is either and or situation. It is both are concurrently functioning. Now we are going in a new section from 126 to the 29, which will be the end of the chapter, just in time. 1 minute I have. I may take a minute or so extra, but not longer. Now this is a new section where there is a disagreement in different authors. Somebody, it is about Purush because the whole section is on Purush. Somebody takes it for a tiny soul, somebody takes it for Ishwar. In my view, in my personal view, the features that are described are common to both. That's why I've put the title as Purush. Purush includes both when I talk, otherwise, when I have mentioned Ishwar or tiny soul. So, Purush is untouched by matter because that's what the creation is, the universe is, its material world, and we live here, tiny souls, as well as that all pervading entity. So wherever I am, matter is there, and wherever that all pervading Ishwa is there, matter. What is this relationship? How do we connect? Of course, there was a statement where the example of a magnet was there, because magnet upayagat, the term upayagat had come, which is like a magnet is has the ability to pull an iron piece, though it is not in connected to it, but it has some ability to do that. So that is this section. There are four statements. Let's look at it. 1.126, I will just read the translation. Purush is witness to the events, saksha sakshito, whether at the chitta buddhi, at the individual level, or universally. Because I am following a line that Purush is applicable to both. So at an individual level, I am witness to what is happening on the buddhi. I am merely a witness. In other words, becoming a witness is not its inherent nature. Because if it was inherent nature, then I will not never have liberation. So it is, I am, it's inherently not a witness, but for the time being, I am a witness. And for the time being, I have not become the Mahat or Buddhi. I am merely a witness. So when you are a witness, you are seeing the event from a distance. You are just a witness. You are not part of the Buddhi. In the same manner, so it becomes a witness because of its avivek and natural functions. So then what is the inherent nature of Purush? So here I will say I could have made a similar statement for Ishwar. Ishwar is also merely the witness of what the events are going on, because I am following a line that these four statements are valid for both. Let's look at 127. Then what is the inherent nature of Purush? Inherent nature is Nitya and Mukta, which we have studied earlier also. Nitya, Shuddha, Swabhav was the Mukta Swabhav for the tiny souls. So again that is being repeated, and it is now for both Ishwar as well as tiny. Purush is inherently eternal and unbonded. Eternal is Nitya, unbounded is Mukt. Its existence has no beginning or end. It never acquires the attributes of Prakriti, even if bonded by the later on when acting upon it. So Ishwar doesn't get bonded but acts upon it. But even when it is acting upon it, it remains unbonded. One more final slide. 128. It is indifferent, udasin, or dasinyam cheti. It is indifferent, technically speaking. Though I am watching the buddhi, I am indifferent about it. I can become indifferent, isn't it? As if I am not concerned with it. And Ishwa is, of course, by very nature, is indifferent. It undergoes no transformation. So that way I am absolutely indifferent, because a lot of things are happening, fluctuations in my buddhi, but that is not happening to me. That way I am truly indifferent, and that way Ishwa is also indifferent. But actions, now a question is but actions emanate from a conscious being, and hence actions should be characterized as another inherent attribute of soul. Actions appear to emanate from Purush due to its proximity to matter. It is not that I am acting, it is that Buddhi is doing all that, but Buddhi is so close to me, I get a feeling as if I am acting, isn't it? So similarly, Ishwa is not doing anything. Ishwa is making matter behave like this. It is not that Ishwa connects to the matter. It has the ability to make the matter behave like that. The previously example of magnet pulling an iron piece was given. So that brings us to the end of today. I knew, of course, I will be exceeding time, so I am not summarizing. chapter 1. I will try to do next week's very briefly, because next week is 21st November. I want to give you a summary of later chapters. Sorry, this should have been chapter 5th and 6th. So my plan is, I hope we are okay with the December 19. If you want this to close before then, please write to me. Otherwise, this is what my plan is. See you next week. Sorry, it took some time extra.
No, it's okay.
5 minutes extra.